Jenny, welcome back to the Way Champions.
Thanks. I'm excited to see you guys. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
It's exciting to welcome you back as the 2025 national champion as well. So, congratulations on that. Like, what an amazing run you've had at Carolina, but also another deserved championship. And here you are, right in the, middle to end of fall ball, right back in the thick of it, right? No rest for the weary.
Yeah, I think when you think about, well, I'm starting my 31st year at Carolina, but honestly, every year is a totally new year. So it doesn't feel like it's been that long because I'm always kind of where my feet are and enjoying where I am and who I'm doing things with. So really excited about the upcoming year and hoping to build off what we did in 25. So it's been a pretty awesome run.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing because Jerry, I forget when we had Tara Vanderveer on right after she retired, and her incredible work in championships, for her 20 something years apart or whatever, and just that ability to keep connecting, keep teaching, keep building. As kids adapt and change, you have to adapt and change, and you're getting right up there with the longevity of incredible success. So it's a what's the secret sauce?
Um, I think being curious and being open to change, or open to learning, open to trying new things, open to embracing. My staff is young whippersnappers that definitely can do a lot of things better than I can do, and including moving. Um, I'm invigorated every day by what I can learn from my staff and the people around me, and then also our athletes. I'm in a little bit of a sweet spot right now because my own kids are. I had all three of them here at Carolina last year, Jerry. I don't know if you knew that, but
I did. I was
Ryan,
following that.
yeah,
Yeah,
Ryan was a senior, Alec was
right.
a sophomore, and Kate was a freshman. And
Can't believe it.
I'm identifying with this age group at home, as well as in my profession. And I feel like that it's I love it. I love it. I went up to New York last weekend to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
my oldest who's working in the city and just said, he's like, what do you want to do? I go, whatever you want to do, I'll do. And we had a blast. So, just kind of embracing, the fact that I get to do this every day and love it.
I think that's such an interesting point you just made that as a parent with kids in the demographic that you're coaching, you do kind of live it every day. It's not so foreign from your day-to-day existence. It will be interesting as you continue coaching and your kids age up. Like you don't have that daily like connection to it with your own kids and see how it affects like you see the kids on the field or whatever, but how it permeates everything in their life.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think what I've learned is how to, dive into like real authentic communication and really developing relationships with players that extend far beyond the field, which is something I've always wanted to do. I think I've gotten better at it through the years. You would think I would have been really good at it in my 20s. I think it was probably my worst decade
Oh,
of connecting. But maybe because there was so much change going on in my own personal life now, I'm really confident and secure in who I am. I've got a great husband and Dan, who's been a partner of mine in all things that we've done in our lives. And so, my full attention can go to where my passions are. It's trying to infiltrate, 18 to 22-year-old young women's minds, help them believe in themselves and buy into, I know people don't love the word buy-in, but buy into their own development and their own belief system that they can be great. So I think I'm better than I ever was because of where I am in my life.
Yeah. You said before Jerry jumps in, you said before we started recording, you said living a life of ascension and improvement, which you had stolen from Anson. And I really like that because when you do that and live that and model it, then your players can as well. Like you can't you're not authentic if you're telling them to do one thing and you're doing the opposite.
No, that's been something for me that's been sticky forever is When I was able to run the runs that they would run, I'd go out in my 20s and do the run before the team would do the run. Obviously, in my 30s, I was having kids, so that was a little harder. In my 40s, I tried to replicate some of it, and now I have to make some adjustments now that I'm a little older, but I still think about how am I holding myself accountable and pushing myself, whether it's in um, my own curiosity and my learning or in my own physical work, where if I've hit a plateau, how do I break through that? Maybe it's in just my own habits of like being healthy and getting great sleep, hydrating. Um, and so like 2 summers ago, I got trained. I did a 200-hour yoga teacher training. I've been a
Nice.
long time yoga user, but I've never gotten trained in it. And I thought, all right, I've got a month where I'm not super busy. Dan would beg to differ on that, but he's like, I cannot believe you just signed up for doing a 200 yoga training in 4 weeks. But I really wanted to dive deeper into that. Not for Definitely for myself in some ways, but so how could I use it even more with my team? And what could I learn from it? I had no expectations except for to learn. So that's the type of things I think about now, and I have more space to do so because I'm not driving carpool or making dinner as much anymore.
But you know what's interesting about that? I've talked a couple times on here. A friend of mine, Trevor Reagan, suggested this thing, which I did with my teams during COVID, which was the anti-talent show. And it was called Everyone had like 2 weeks to learn something they couldn't do. Play guitar, a trick on your skateboard, or whatever. I learned to juggle, right? But it's really like the eye opener is like it's so important as we get older and we distance ourselves from the kids that we're coaching or the kids that we're raising, to never forget what it's like to learn something new, because we're asking them to do that every day. And also the to struggle, right? And for them to see us struggle or be like, oh man, yeah, I'm learning to be a yoga teacher or whatever. This is hard stuff. Like, I think that's just really important that we don't learn that sort of lose that white belt mentality.
Oh, I think being humbled by doing new things is probably one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself as a human. Because especially if you're a teacher or someone who's guiding others in a discipline, because it reminds you that learning is hard. Because we've coached lacrosse for a long time, so it may seem like second nature to us, and yet we're speaking a foreign language to our freshmen. They're like, I have no clue what you're talking about. So, yeah, I mean, whether it's I play a lot of pickleball, so trying to get better on the pickleball court. Now have some a little bit more time for golf and doing some playing more golf. So trying to get better there because I'm not very good. So, yeah, just trying to stay humble, in trying new things. I think everybody should do that if you have the opportunity and the time.
Yeah.
So let's unpack some of the things you're saying because you're saying so many things so rapidly that I don't want our listeners to miss some of these real key points. The first point you mentioned, uh, uh, Jenny, was curiosity. It's a beautiful word. And look, for those of you who don't know, I worked with Jenny for I don't know how many years, 7, 8 years, something like
Yeah,
that.
an 8-year run,
Eight
Jerry.
year. I think we had
Yeah,
an 8 year run, and
yeah.
that's when Kate was like one
Just
year old,
born.
and now she's playing starter, yeah, on Carolina. So that's a long time. But one thing I remember, you're talking about curiosity, is you really live it. You are, of all the coaches I've worked with, you're one of the top lifelong learning type of people. I mean, if you recall, we used to go to lunch, and it wasn't about lunch. It was about 2.5 hours of learning. And I was learning a ton too. I got a lot of books out of those conversations. But you were constantly picking my brain. Like, oh my God, is there anything in there? And you would pull out things that I didn't even know I knew. And we would go back and forth in this. And the coaches who are listening, you have to absorb this because if you're not a lifelong learner, you're going to plateau and you're going to get stale, and you're going to wonder why you don't like your work. And Jenny, what you're doing is you're constantly refueling, refiring, rewiring, and getting to a place where you can absolutely create new joy and a new pathway. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is you mentioned the word relationship, and I've had conversations with you, and I can remember you saying this, and I'd like you to sort of take over and unpack this. You said to me one time that the Carolina culture is relationship based. And while I was there, I remember talking about this. I remember finding ways together that we can do this. You say it's the cornerstone of your success, which has been amazing. I mean, I think right now you could consider yourself a perennial Final Four contender. Just say it out loud, to hell with it. And if it doesn't work out, so what? But anyway, it's like the most important thing to winning a championship is the relationship game. Tell us about that. Tell the coaches that are listening the importance of this and what you do to implement it and what that looks like in Carolina.
Yeah, I think for me, like how the team feels. Obviously, listen, I'm on a stage that is evaluated by winning and losing, and I've made a ton of mistakes, and we've had seasons where you scratch your head and say, Why did it go sideways?" But I think that ultimately, the relationships that you create with your players, they have to allow you to come into their space. You can't force that, and I've learned that through the years too, the hard way. But it's just so rewarding to go on a journey with a group of people that you really care about and watch them start to really care about each other. Because I do think that that can be a margin. And we didn't always have that. I think we talk about being transformational in our approach to, bringing people to Carolina, what their experience is here as not just someone on our team, regardless of what their role is on game day, like how do they help the betterment of the group? And if it's always going to be about me and what am I going to get, it's all about me. I think those type of players really get spit out of our program pretty quickly. Selfish is not something that we love. And so I think you can have really high performing athletes at the very top level that get honored for a lot of individual awards and things like that. But at the end of the day, a lot of the people have come out of Carolina. They're also, besides being real highly competitive and really skilled, they're also great teammates. And it's just something that we've always valued. And, everyone has their own style of coaching and philosophy and things like that. But when I look back at 30 years at Carolina, I can tell you that is the one thing that has always been at the top of my list. And sometimes I've done it really well, and sometimes I haven't for whatever reason. Maybe I just, maybe I didn't bring in the right person. Maybe I didn't bring in the right players, but I've evolved too, and I haven't become as rigid as I used to be on some of my non-negotiables, but we had a 30-year reunion last year. I had representation from all of those different years come back in all the different classes, except for the ones that were having babies. And to see the different pockets come back and enjoy each other and enjoy the program and enjoy our current team, like that to me is like one of the most powerful rooms to be in because it's relationship based and it's 30 years worth of people that are all connected to one thing, which is Carolina lacrosse. And I don't see a lot of people doing that. I know like Dean Smith had that with his program. I didn't really know Dean that well, but I know Roy continued that, and Roy was a big mentor for me. Anson Dorrance has that with the women's soccer program. They just had so much pride in each other and the program, and the relationships were real. So I just think it gives you so much joy to be a part of something that's not just your 4 years there.
It's a brilliant statement. And as you were saying it, I remember you telling us the story the first time you were on the podcast after your first couple years, right when you started working with Jerry, but kind of going in, maybe it's worth telling again, going into Roy Williams, who had just won another national championship, and saying, like, how do you get over the top? And this story is always stuck with me. So maybe if you could tell it again, because I think it's such a good one that touches on curiosity, humility, what can I give? All these themes that you've just talked about, that really sort of set the stage for what you've done since.
Sure. Well, it took us 18 years to win our first national championship. And during that time, obviously, we had started the program from scratch. There was no lacrosse in the state of North Carolina. We were pretty good right away. Jerry was at Maryland at the time with Cindy, and we became a pretty formidable foe in Division One. Our second and third year, we went to the Final Fours, and then we went back to Final Four in 2002. And then we hit this like massive dry spell. I was having kids. We just weren't very good. And ironically, I'm still very close with a lot of those teams that weren't very good. And the players still come back and we laugh about it. But it wasn't laughable at the time. And so we restructured starting in 05, 06. Jerry came in. Um, I think after the '08 season, Jerry, I think that's when I called you. We lost at the Dome in '08. And so we had we had restructured um, and really started from scratch, like from recruiting to how we ran practice to what our core values were. Jerry came in and really helped me identify what my core truths were as a coach, and we made it part of our core values as a program because obviously I'm the one who's got to do it year in and year out. And we had gotten back to the Final Four in '09 and had been knocking on the door. And then in 12, we get caught in a 4-5 game played up at the Dome and lost a really tough game up there. And um, I went into Roy. I called, we got home, and I'm thinking, gosh, we've come so far yet. I've got these great teams, and we can't seem to like get over the hump. And Roy obviously had been at Kansas for I think 15 years, had never won, and then he comes to Carolina and he wins in '05 and '09. So, and so my curiosity with him was like, well, what was the difference? Like, did it change? Were you a different coach? Were the players different? What was it that you couldn't figure out at Kansas that you figured out at Carolina? And so I went in, we had a full discussion. And of course, I'm devastated because our season has ended and not the way I wanted it. And he said, well, you've changed all these things and you have to stay the course you may never win and you might just have to be okay with never winning. And I thought, well, that's easy for you to say because you've just won two national championships in 4 years with two different groups, which was super curious as well. Like, how did he replicate a championship with two completely different teams in 4 years? So that was something that we had talked about a lot. But he just said, you have to stick with who you are and what you're doing, and you have to believe in it. And you may never win, and you have to be okay with that, which of course I wasn't. And then fast forward a year later, we win the national championship in 5 overtimes. And I get home the next day. I think I'm like sitting on the couch and Coach Roy calls and he's like, "Congratulations." I just remember being like, "Oh my God." But that's the story. And he was right. You had to keep going on and keep working on things and just hoping that what you're doing had enough passion, belief, and discipline that it was the right formula for what we were doing.
Yeah. Jerry, I mean, I
But
think,
ironically,
yeah.
ironically though, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jenny, uh, one of the agreements that you made with yourself, this is really strange now, what I'm going to say, because it's contradicting what you say. I know you want to win, but on the other hand, you know that going into the locker room and going out on the field, you can't be wanting to win.
Nope.
And so help us understand that piece because I know you want to win. I got that right from the very first time. You even asked me, how long is it going to take me to win? And I said, give us some time, will you? It might take 4 years. And I thought you were going to like fire me on the spot. But
Well,
there's
you're
something
right.
about there's something about you and your program though that takes away from that and channels it in other ways. But I know you know what I'm talking about.
I do. No, your goal can't be to win. Your goal's got to be to build relationships, to have discipline in how you approach things every day, to be curious, be a curious learner as a player and as a coach. And you have to trust. It's a little bit of a blind trust that you're going to put all this work in and everyone's going to pull in the same direction. And eventually, that's going to get you to a level that you feel like is sustainable. And soft is strong. Water can move mountains, but it's pretty soft material. And yeah, I think going in at a win at all cost focus is really, really puts a lot of stress on your staff, puts a lot of pressure on the players. It takes away from building the foundations that you need to build with your chemistry and your relationships, and also being process oriented as a performer too, where you get out every day and try to make marginal gains in the things that you're trying to get better at. We always talk to our players about, put the tools in your tool belt. Like start, especially like our freshmen right now. They're coming in and they're having to learn a lot. They have to learn language, footwork, stick work, like obviously things that we do and how we play. And I said, you're not going to be able to capture all this in a learning environment in one day. Pick one thing and start to work on that. And once you get that one down, then go to the next one and then go to the next one. So you have to be very disciplined in your approach to how you're going to build out your tool belt when you're learning. And so, a lot of the guys today, they don't have that patience to like dive into it. And they really don't want to stick with things. They get very frustrated early. And so you kind of have to trick them into it. And, but you also, when you see it and they accomplish something that that they're working on, to celebrate that little moment that they think might be insignificant, that you're like, hey, I saw that. That's really important. And so, that you can do that with your staff too. Like, hey, I know you're feeling like we're not getting to where we want to get on this end of the field or that end of the field. Go back to the basics, teach the fundamental. It will happen. You just have to be patient. And none of us are patient. I am the least patient person in my household. Like everybody knows mom is very
Yeah,
impatient,
you
but you
are.
just have to stick with it. You do. It's
Yeah.
really painful sometimes.
You are impatient.
I know.
I'm just
Yeah. Yeah.
confirming that. However, let's talk about those freshmen because let's put ourselves in the shoes of freshmen. They're also leaving home.
Yeah.
What a
That's
safe,
dangerous.
incredible, warm, cozy environment that is. And they've been really good at home. They've been the star. That's why they're at Carolina. Now they come to Carolina and they're not. So what do they have? They have a lot of fear, right?
Yeah. They
I
have
mean,
to.
every one of your freshmen right now are afraid. They're afraid they're going to let you down, their parents down, their teammates down, themselves down. They're afraid that they're going to lose it. They're not going to win it. They're not going to score. They're not going to get playing time. So there's a lot of fear. But what stands out in your culture, and you could talk more about this, is you're really good at communicating to those kids how much they're loved. And for those who don't realize this, the opposite of fear is love. So the key to high level performance is a loving, caring environment. And I don't mean, you know, squishy, mushy love type of thing. I mean like really cared for. They're really cared for and they really connect and you have that environment. So these freshmen come in with an advantage. They make mistakes, but they know they're loved. And if you know you're loved, your performance is going to go higher. The big ingredient for high performance is love. We know this. Science has proven this over and over again. Feelings equal function. If these freshmen feel loved, so all of that lead up to you saying, you know how to love them. And a lot of coaches are not aware of how that's important. But number two is they don't know how to do it. How do you demonstrate your caring and your love and your connection with these kids? Do you have any kind of specific things that you'll do to make sure these kids feel loved?
Yeah, I mean, good point, Jerry. I think, they're so afraid to fail. Failures and we actually talk about failure a lot. And our upperclassmen, they get frustrated with our upperclassmen who, they'll get frustrated if people aren't putting it out there to fail. Like they want you to fail in practice in a
Hmm.
positive way. They want to fail you, they want you to fail forward, right? They want you to go take such a risk at something that it's coachable. What they don't, what our environment doesn't want is you to be so safe that we can't coach you in that safe space because it's kind of boring and it's safe. You're not getting better in that. We'd rather you go for something so crazy that we all look at you and like die laughing, be like, that was incredible effort. But like, let's take that back a notch. That is so much more fun to like give feedback and coach than like the kid who's just afraid to like do anything. We'd rather see someone go for the jugular every single time and have to pull it back. So we encourage that in practice. I think trying to break through with freshmen, trying to break through where they finally can get comfortable with you in a one-on-one conversation where they're actually being authentic. I really try to have casual encounters with my players, whether it's before practice, after practice, in the in the weight room. I really try to hang around my team as much as possible during casual, like when they are interacting and it's not a practice environment, we're not in practice. I'm trying to have small little conversations with people to try to bridge a relationship where they can feel like, oh, Jenny's, having a conversation with me and I'm not so nervous that I actually can have a real conversation with her. So what I'm looking for in my interactions with all of my players is, are they being real to me or are they just yesing me? And the players that just say yes, 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 I'm like, and then I'll ask them a question that's actually a no answer, and they'll say yes. I'm like, actually, the answer is no. I'll say something like, "Do you have a cat?" Yes. I'm like, "Actually, you don't. You have a dog." And something stupid like that. And to like get them to understand, like, you're not listening and you're not telling me authentically how you're feeling, what you're thinking about, any of that. So I want my players to be truthful with me. If I ask you a question, I want you to tell me a truth. Where are you today? I'm really tired. All right, I can work with that. Or where are you today? I'm feeling great. I aced my whatever exam and it's sunny out, it's 80 degrees, and we're going to have a great day. So I really try to build the relationships by having casual encounters with them at all time. I find it interesting that a lot of coaches don't want to interact with their players or their families outside of their sport, right? And I've like that gives me a clue of like how they interact with their parents, how I see them respond to different things. I don't know. The more I can be around them, the better. I just observe. And then I try to come in where I can to try to create a relationship with each player that is authentic. Now, some players need more from me than others. Others are like, I'm good talking to Jenny here, here, and here. I don't really need from her much. And then other players really need a lot more from me. And so I try to gauge that too.
I just want to point out one thing. You have three children, and I remember being there when these kids were younger. I think your kids were teaching you more than anybody else in the whole
Mhm.
place. And I like how to relate. This is how you're going to have to relate to these kids. You learned it from them and made a mistake. Now you're going to, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm not suggesting all coaches go out and have kids.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
No.
that there is an advantage to being a parent in
Yeah.
terms of understanding the nuances of youth, especially with these different generations like Gen Z and what's the new one, Alpha or something?
I don't even know what they're called, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think just like finding ways that you can connect with people that's maybe not just
Uh,
with lacrosse.
that's right.
Like
Yeah.
just, if they have something coming up or if there's something going on with their family or, just send them a little note, whether it's a text or a handwritten note, just doing the little extra things. We meet with all of our players every other week in the fall. So every other week, our staff is having players come through. They sign up their time. They know it's about 15-20 minute check-in. And it doesn't have to be about lacrosse in the fall. It's all really whatever they want to talk about, but it gives them their own time to just come in and have face with one of us. So we try to really create an environment where they feel like they can be themselves.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like kind of Jerry in the beginning where I say we've touched on so many things that I don't want people to miss them, and it's important. So I'll bring up a couple of these things. Number one, you were talking about like every day adding something to your tool belt. And I think this is a really consistent theme amongst the best coaches we've talked to and people who work with the best Olympic athletes in and so what's the difference between someone who wins an Olympic gold and someone who had ability but doesn't? And he said one of the things is own your development.
Yep.
Own your development. Like you need to own it. So when you go to practice for 2 hours, what are you going to get better at today? And if you said, if you come off, yeah, I worked on that footwork. Yes, I saw you. I saw you doing that. That was better. The timing of my cuts, the pace of my cuts, whatever it is, right? Own your development. And so I don't want to brush over that as coaches, getting players to own their development, focus on one thing today and when you walk off the field at the end, you can say, how'd it go today? What'd you get better at? Great. That's how people improve, right?
Yeah, there's so many, it's interesting now, the recruiting process where I don't know like where this came from, but so many players like, well, I want to play right away.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, great. We want players that want to play right away. We want to play our underclassmen. Last year, we probably played 4 or 5 freshmen last year, but I couldn't, and one of them was my daughter. And so I couldn't even tell my own daughter whether she was going to start or contribute to our program as a freshman. My conversation with my own daughter was like, listen, you got to show up to get better every day. You got to be a great teammate. You got to be prepared. What does prepared mean? You got to hydrate, eat, sleep, come in to get to work every day, and with those habits become tools that you can use on game day. And I think that a lot of these really talented kids coming out of high school, they didn't have to learn those little smaller steps because maybe they're faster, bigger, stronger than everybody. And now they're being put into an arena where everyone's big, fast, and strong. And your work ethic now becomes the differentiating factor. How much time are you spending on your craft? And I think that the top players have an appetite to go work in the backyard by themselves.
Mhm.
They really, there's something that happens in practice or in a game that they want to do better, and then they go work on it. Or they have a favorite player at the next level that they watch and they want to mimic. And the ones that just want a fast track to starting, those guys will never do well in our program. I don't know what to tell you, but like I'd rather take a kid who's like, I want to come in and I'm going to work really, really hard. And of course, they're going to be a really good athlete. They're like, I'm going to work hard every single day. And my goal is to get better and challenge the people around me. Those players do really well in our program. The
Yeah.
ones that just want a guarantee start and be the star, um, those guys end up being fool's gold a lot of the time. And, I think if people tracked how many times coaches promise playing time and this and that to these players, and then they go those programs and then they don't, like, there's no accountability for that conversation. I think you have to own your development, especially, at our level. Like everyone has an opportunity every day to get better.
Yeah. And then also, if you aren't playing, what are you going to contribute? Right? So they come out of this environment. Of course, if they're going to Carolina, they've always played, they've always started, they've always been an All-American or all conference, all state, whatever it is. So what are you going to contribute every day if you don't get playing time? How are you going to make the team better? Or, your Jerry and I always say your influence isn't neutral, right? So you're either going to lift people up or drag them down. What are you going to do if you don't get a minute in this game? What are you going to do in practice? And what's your contribution? Or to use your words that you did before, what are you going to give instead of what are you going to get?
Our best teams have been, and our most successful teams have been when everybody feels like they're valued. So that goes back to the relationship piece. Everybody is contributing, especially in practice. I think your practice environment is the most important for individual and group growth. And I know we have a really great practice environment where everyone has an opportunity to contribute and get better every day. And so, I think game day, we use it as a a barometer, so to speak, of like, all right, how are we doing? How is our training environment setting us up for success on the field? So if our training environment is great, that means everyone's contributing. If we're constantly battling our training environment because there's, the bottom 10% of our team is disengaged and worrying about themselves or sad about their job and their role, those are really hard years because either I haven't done a good enough job with them in communication, or they just don't want to buy into the fact that they've got to work a little harder.
Hmm. God, I love this because it's so important for people to hear this. How do you get that training environment to that level, right? When you're the top one of the top programs in the country, last year you were the top program in the country, like convincing people like, hey, this, you know, if practice is this is what Anson used to always say, practice has to be the hardest day of the week, and the games are going to be easy. We have the best players right here on the practice field. And yeah, I understand, Jenny, you're not playing, but guess what? You get to compete every day against an All-American. If you use this, you're going to get better, right?
Yeah.
So how do you keep driving that practice environment day after day after day? And when you have those percentage of players who aren't buying in, how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, part of, for coaches at our level or at any level really is, we're not at a rec level. It's not a democracy for playing time, and it's a competitive environment for playing time. Um, it's just, sorry, I lost my train of thought on that, but there's no guarantees. There's not a guarantee. So, well, first and foremost, we start with the recruiting process. We're not promising anybody anything. I think that, like, setting expectations and the standards, say, hey, when you come here, this is a really great environment. There's so many things that you're going to learn about yourself. You're going to, great education. It's a really healthy environment to be in every day. We take great care of our kids emotionally, physically, every spiritually, like in a lot of different ways. But it's hard work. And our expectation for you is to come in and work hard and get better every day. And we were really pretty forward. We're pretty forward about that in the recruiting process. Because if someone says, well, I want to start, I'm like, well, that's fine. I don't mind that. But like, what are you backing that up with? So maybe we're not the right fit for you. I'd rather take someone who wants to work any day of the week. And our practice environment, we play everybody in practice. Like, everybody has a role in practice. And we also believe that if we can take care of our games, we also play everybody. If we can get everybody in a game, we can get everybody in the game. Our Final Four game last year against Florida, our whole entire bench got in except for a goalie. Like, everybody who was allowed to be in uniform got on the field in a Final Four game. I don't think a lot of people do that. I think as a coach, if you're in control of a game and you have an opportunity to play your next level kids that have been working hard every day, we try to get those guys on the field as much as we humanly possibly can to reward them for what they're doing in practice as well. And we make sure that our starters and our more consistent players, we make sure that they're really engaged in when those guys are on the field, they're celebrating them because they're the ones they practice against every day. And so the reward is, if our starters are ready to, blast somebody on game day, then, by third and fourth quarter, we're getting our bench in. And I think that's a philosophy that we have lived by. And like last year, we had most of our kids played in 11 to 12 to 13 games last season. And so that's the reward. But a lot of people don't take the opportunity to do that, which is fine. But we're able to do that because of our practice environment. And so many people say, well, you have so much talent. I said, well, we develop our talent. There's players that are playing for us that no one ever heard of, but we've developed them. And now they've become a formidable player at the top of Division One. And so I think that it's a chicken or the egg thing. It's like, a lot of people don't develop their whole team. Well, we're committed to developing our whole team. And so that maybe draws holds us back a little bit in some areas, but I don't think so. I would much rather commit to developing a whole team.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, but my my memory about your practices are there was always a segment, Jenny, and maybe it was 20 minutes out of the whole time where I thought I was experiencing a national championship game.
Yeah.
I mean it. I mean, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, oh my God, they're
Yeah.
at the top level right now. Why don't they save it? Well, what was happening there was you were developing the mentality for everybody to get into that particular situation, and that was admirable. Talk about practice environments. And Anson used to do that too. I remember watching Anson's teams play, and oh my God, it was like I don't need to go to Cary, Indiana. What Gary, North Carolina. But here's my I want to segue here. I know we're coming close to the end, John, and I'd be remiss if I didn't throw this out there. 2022, special year for you. You were head coach of the women's national team. As I recall, you went undefeated, 8-0, and win the world championship, correct?
Yeah.
If that weren't most people that would be a career like moment. That would be like the oh my God, I've reached it. Now I can retire. But you take your team and you go undefeated, 22 and 0, win the national championship. But what a lot of people might not realize is we're watching this game in the semifinal. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking about this because I watched every freaking second of that game. You're down 7 freaking goals. 7 goals with only 8 minutes to go.
Yeah.
That's insurmountable. I'm sorry. I don't care. You know, I'll, I mean, you know much more than I do about this, but there's no way in my history of watching women's lacrosse that I've ever seen a 7 goal with 8 minutes to go overcome. Well, guess what happened? You overcame it. You went on undefeated, win the national championship on Sunday. Tell me, what the hell happened?
Well, I was in a pretty dark spot on the sideline because I'm thinking, I can't believe I just felt terrible that maybe I hadn't done everything I should have done as a coach to get our players.
By the way, everybody's saying that this is it. This is the end. This is the end of undefeated
Totally.
season. I just want
People,
you to know that that
yeah,
was the conversation going around.
I
So
know.
go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Everyone was in a dark spot who was hoping that we would win. Obviously, I had a fifth year class that hadn't won a championship. So in their minds, they're thinking, oh my God, we're failures if we don't win today. And I, as much as we try to address it, they were tight the whole game. And we
Yeah.
get down the stretch and there was a timeout called. I think it was a TV timeout. And the team said, all right, we got to go now, Jenny. I'm like, yeah, you think? Like, what do you guys want to do? Because this is your 8 minutes. This is not my 8 minutes. And we had plenty prepared. We'd been in situations in practice where we work through things. And, when you do situations in practice, very rarely did we win them, actually. Our starting team usually lost them. So, but we did them all the time. And so they're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And well, I mean, I obviously they knew our plan. They knew what our options were because we practiced all the options. I said, you need to trap here. We need to get a ride here. We made a couple adjustments off the draw. And they just went to work one play at a time, and the highlight reel just shows the people scoring. It doesn't show how we got the ball back, but the ball, we repossessed the ball on like 3 or 4 different occasions where we actually turned them over through riding, pressing, double teams that we were capable of. And they just decided to turn up the heat. And it was all of them on the field deciding that we are not going to lose this game. And it couldn't come from me. I wasn't on the field. And it wasn't a tactical, the tactics were already in their brains. They already knew what to do. They just had to free themselves up and go do it. And finally, they were like, we are not losing and we're going for it. I said, all right, you will not regret this decision. Let's go. And so they did it. It's really the team and their leadership with each other, their belief in each other. obviously a lot of different practice environments, position them to have success in that environment. And then one play after another, they make it, and we're down four with 5 minutes left. And I was like, we're going to win this game. There's no way we're not winning this game. And so that's when it flipped. And I think when we got within 4 goals, I think everybody was like, yeah, we're going to win this game. So it was the most unusual game I'd ever been a part of. I think once that happened, people were crying. They couldn't believe that we had pulled it off. It was
Yeah,
just those like crazy, crazy games. And, I think because we play a lot of different people, going back to, developing your bench, we put people in that game that hadn't been in a big game in the playoffs, just because of the things that we knew that they could do physically. So we took a freshman midi. We played her on the offensive line off the draw to ride. So if we didn't get the ball, we had a little bit more speed in a midi. We made some tactical adjustments with personnel, with unusual personnel.
mhm.
That paid off, but it really wasn't about the coaching at all. It was 100% the players.
I think you're also being extremely um, humble, which I love about you. But clearly, you were sending them a message in some way. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, what are the coaches listening to this think if they're in a situation like that? Which who knows? I'm just thinking that you had to say something to them. Maybe nothing. Maybe just you didn't say anything, and that
I
came
think
from what.
that, yeah. I don't remember except for looking him in the eyes and being like, you got this. Like, go do it.
Well,
Like,
there you go.
what are you afraid of? Like,
Yeah,
you've already played poorly for
yeah,
three
yeah.
quarters of the game. So,
What can you lose? You're down seven. What the hell? You
yeah,
know?
like, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
That's
was,
it's a great story, and I tell it a lot with people who are doubting themselves and losing in games and stuff like that. But it's classic. It's never been done before. The
yeah,
two things, the
yeah,
two things together. I mean,
together. Yeah.
yeah, I've seen undefeated seasons go with a tough semifinal, but never world championship undefeated, national championship undefeated, and the way it happened too. So
Yeah, it was
anyway,
it was unusual. I think the ability to take risks and make change is something that we've been pretty good at.
that's precious. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are going to be like, they're so afraid to make a change or adjust something. Maybe it's
Hmm.
in how you're training your team tactically, or even in game using a player that you might not play. Again, it goes back to that development piece in practice and really understanding and giving all your players a chance to show what they can do, that
Hmm.
we can throw. Like, we had a freshman in the championship game last year. Um, she went in for 2 plays off the draw and won both of those draws. And like, she didn't play a ton for us as a set defender, but we used her on the circle just to give like our middies a quick break before we went down the stretch of the final of the game. And again, like, we'd been playing her all year, little limited number, like limited minutes, but getting her into games here and there so we could smooth her out, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
smooth out her nerves a little bit.
yeah.
So we would get her into games like second quarter, big games, just to like have her feel it. And so now here we are in the championship game,
Yeah.
and I pulled her aside. I'm like, all right, you're going to go in next draw, and you're going to make a play, and whatever it happens, happens, but go for it. And she made 2 unbelievable possession plays for us. And so, I think, taking risks and trusting your players is something that you learn to do when you are working with them every day in practice and giving them those opportunities as well.
And giving them an environment where there's a relationship between everybody and there's love where people are not afraid of making mistakes. They go out and just play like it's a Sunday afternoon in the park, right? And
Yeah.
and and so that summarizes a lot of what you're saying, I believe, and I think that Carolina is a beautiful example of how the game should be played and how sports should be played.
Jenny,
Yeah.
I have to ask this because I know you have to go to practice here soon. But I think so many of our listeners, those of us we coach our own kids, and now you are at Carolina coaching coaching your own kids. What's that like for you and for your daughter? And how do you manage yeah, how do you put on your coach hat and take off your mom hat? How does your daughter realize what hat you're wearing? This is a big question, but I think it's a really important one. Because it's one thing to coach your kid, because there's pressure on you, her being there, there's pressure on her for being there.
Yeah.
I wish I had a more profound answer to that. But I do think that I coach like I parent and parent like I coach. Not that there's not a obviously an incredible personal relationship with my daughter because she's my daughter, but I'm really consistent and she's amazing. So um it's an honor, quite honestly, that my own daughter has the talent to be here and impact our program. That she's a normal kid in the sense that she's not perfect. She has things that are unbelievable about her that make her unique, and there's things that she needs to improve on, and she's very aware of what those two things are. She knows that I will coach her just like I coach her teammates. Um, and she also, I know her well enough that she's such a tough competitor that I know she's going to be great in big games. And, going into the ACC championship game last year, that we were in the Saturday practice before the championship game, and she had an okay semifinal game. It wasn't great. I don't think it was terrible, but it was like, and I just said to her, I'm like, I know you're going to be great tomorrow. Like you
Hmm.
always great in these situations. These are the times where you shine. And she's like, I know, I'll be great tomorrow, Mom. And so she was great. She was a margin for us in the ACC championship game. And she's just an incredible competitor with poise and a really level head. And she doesn't have a big ego. So she's willing to do whatever the team needs. But to see her out there making the plays that she makes, sometimes I'm like, holy cow, she's a way better athlete than me. But I think, some people wanted to use this dynamic against us in recruiting. Shame on them. They don't know me, they don't know her and our relationship. But the people that are within the program and our players know that it's a really healthy place for her, for me, and for them. And it just works. She's an incredible human. So I have so much respect for her.
Yeah. Do you ever like have a moment where you might coach a player in this moment and you just turn to one of your assistants, but you take that one when it's your daughter because it doesn't need to hear from me again? I mean, do you think about it a little differently sometimes?
Sometimes I think like our court, like Marie McCool played for us and she's my offensive coordinator. And then Kayla Wood also played for us and she's our defensive coordinator. So if it's something like specific, tactical or technical, I really let them do their job, but I'd let them do that with all players.
Yeah.
If it's in practice or in a game that needs to be an adjustment, um, Kate's like a really easy player to coach because she gets it. She understands quickly. And so I can be like, "Hey, just be aware of this because you can make this adjustment here and you'll end up, whatever it was." And so she's like, "Okay, I got it." So you can tell her like things that because she's been around the game for so many years and watched so much film with us, and she just has lived in our house for so long that she can make certain adjustments that maybe some of the younger players aren't quite there yet. They will get there.
The coach's
But
kid.
yeah, to the
Yeah.
coaches. I mean, there's a real, coaches' kids they're labeled that for a reason, and I think there's a lot of validity to that just because they're in that environment. But yeah, I've loved it. If anyone has the opportunity to coach their own kid, it's amazing. And I think we're the first in Division I women's lacrosse to do it. I know Kathy next year, her daughter is going to be at Maryland, so I'm
Yeah.
sure she'll have her and I can exchange stories, but I'm sure she'll probably have the same feedback that I have is that she probably runs her household like her team and her team like her household because
Yeah.
it's kind of one big blur anyway, because it crosses over so much in your life.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, I want to be respectful. We want to be respectful of your time here so that you're showing up on time for your players here. Any final word, final thought? I mean, I stopped taking notes because I ran out of room. You had so many gems here for us, Jenny, as always. So, yeah, thank you. Any final thoughts or for our listeners here on coaching, on curiosity, on getting better, on life, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think, people ask me a lot about that. And I think, you're coaching people's kids and people love their kids. And so, you kind of have to match that intensity. And, when you're working with a team, you really have to match that love that parents feel for their kids to be a great, impactful coach. And there's a quote in my yoga room that being like mediocrity is fine until it meets passion. And I'm like, God, that's such a good quote. It's so true, right? When you're really passionate about what you're doing, passionate about your kids, or passionate about your career, or the people that you get to impact every day, like that will always expose mediocrity. And so, I think for people who are coaching and people who are on teams, like love your teammates, love the kids that you're coaching. You try to match that intensity that parents have for their kids, is I think at the end of the day, um, you'll get a great result out of that.
I can't think of a better
Beautiful.
final thought. Jerry, can you?
No, 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 no. I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thanks, you guys.
My mediocrity was fine until I met Jerry's passion, and he's upped my game significantly.
It does. Think how many times there's a friction, and usually the friction comes from somebody's super passionate and somebody's just like, eh. And
Yeah,
those two things,
yeah,
going back to the practice environment,
yeah.
everyone's passionate. It creates a great practice environment. If you
Well,
are just showing
I
up to
re
be average, it causes a lot of problems.
my memory of having our 2 hour lunches together between you and I, your passion and my passion, were heads turning at other tables, looking at us like, what's with them? What the hell
Yeah.
are they doing?
Fruits flying all
We're
over.
like
Second
talking,
round of,
arms are going.
yeah,
It's like,
second
oh,
round of lunch. We
yeah.
we went through
And two
lots of
hours
ice
later, the
cream.
food would still be in front of us because we didn't have time to eat.
Love it.
Well,
Anyway,
thanks for
Love it.
having me, you
great being
all.
with you again, Jenny.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being on. Appreciate it.
Jenny, awesome. Good luck the rest of this fall, and of course, good luck in the 2026 season. And hopefully, we're having this conversation
You're
again with
crushing it already.
another trophy behind you. So, thanks for everything.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks
you
for being on.
guys. Good to
Yeah.
seeing you. Thanks for all your hard work with everybody. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.
Well, Jerry, as I said to Jenny at the end there, I stopped. I ran out of room to take notes. Like every line, every question we asked, she came back with an absolute gem.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she's got a brilliant mind. She's I think the most important thing about her is she is a lifelong serious learner, always learning from everybody. And that's why those lunches were always 2 hours because she couldn't get enough. If we had more time, she would take it. And she studies the game. She's a student. She studies the game. She learns from her assistant coaches. And so Jenny, it's no surprise that she's at the top of her game. There's no such thing as complacency. That's not a word in her lexicon. Uh, Other people get complacent. They win, they're fine. And everyone wants to win, but getting back to Jenny, she wants to win too, but it's really all about setting up this culture with strong relationships, with a lot of love. People feel cared for, they feel connected, and that's why they don't want to leave. They do have people leaving, but if you're not going to buy into that, she said it, we'll ask you to leave. Like that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And just this idea, like we create something where it just doesn't feel like a good fit. Like
Yeah,
you can't be comfortable
yeah,
in a situation when you're
yeah,
not giving, when you're being selfish, when you're
yeah,
just not buying in. And I just like in her world, their attempt to start weeding that out
yeah,
in 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 the recruiting process,
So
right?
this,
That kid who wants says, "No, I want to come in, I want to start right away."
right,
Great.
right.
So do 30 other people,
Yeah.
right? But like,
You're going to have to demonstrate why we're going to start you.
yeah, yeah, you're going to earn it every single day.
Absolutely.
Rather say, I'm going to come in, do whatever it takes. I'm going to train hard. I'm going to own it. I'm going to give. I'm going to contribute.
Yeah.
And hopefully one day that earns me time on the field.
She said 4 words: ascension. I know you just fell in love with that immediately. I could see you grab your pen and go to work. It's a beautiful word. It's not used often, but it really summarizes a lot of what the program represents. And as coaches listening to this, if you think of ascension, it's a rising, isn't it? It's not like winning. It's just rising. So that rising could be one,
Kaizen.
huh?
Ascension's like Kaizen.
It's like Kaizen, exactly. It's small, gradual improvement. It could be like 1% this year. I
Mhm.
remember at Maryland, we used to talk about how can we improve 1% this week? How can we next week 1%? That's all. What do we need to do to improve that 1%? So ascension is a beautiful word. I love it. I always love the word curious,
Mhm.
and it's a person who doesn't have answers but seeking greatness. And then the other word, of course, is trust.
Mhm.
And none of this works without the trust. And
Yeah,
so they got to win the trust. And how they win the trust, it comes back to relationships. And her relationships, she described her words as casual encounters,
I love that part. Yeah.
right? Casual encounters, small conversations about, so how is your dog? Or I heard your mom's in a hospital. Is she okay?
Mhm.
Small, casual encounters which get at the person, not as the athlete. They're not talking lacrosse, they're just talking about what you and I talk about when we're having fun.
And this idea of casual encounters is so important because for the high school coach who's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not at North Carolina. I can't schedule a 20-minute meeting every other week with everyone on my roster. I'm a
Hmm.
high school coach." But you can have casual encounters, right? You can be around, and instead of talking to your coaching staff during the little warm up or whatever, are you having a little conversation with one of your players? Are you talking to your captains? Are you when they're stretching at the cool down at the end, have you wandered off or are you there with
Yeah,
them
right.
having those little moments? Those are the
Absolutely.
moments that put deposits in that trust bank
Absolutely.
that
Boy,
build that relationship, you
we're
know?
getting all of these great nuggets, tying it together. We had a conversation, our last podcast with Betsy Butterick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And tying that into what you're saying and what Jenny was claiming is that you have, in order to teach them, you have to reach them.
Yeah. Love that.
In order to teach them, you have to reach them. So here's Jenny reaching them with the casual encounters. Boy, if there's coaches listening to this that don't grab onto that one, you're missing the whole picture.
Yeah.
That's it. That's coaching. If
That's
you're
cool.
not doing if you're not doing that, you're not coaching.
Yeah. I
X's and O's are all over the internet, by the way.
Yeah, and I love the just the last little piece, which I thought she really put well. Her last piece of advice, you have to match the intensity and love that parents have
Oh
for their
man.
own children. Man, you have to have that same intensity and love to see their kids
Hmm.
get better. Like, what a
Hmm.
great
Hmm.
analogy and picture for me as a parent. Like when I see a teacher who loves teaching and loves my kid as much as I do, man, I trust that teacher. That like they're
Hmm.
we're on this path together. When I see a
Absolutely.
disengaged coach or someone
Right.
treating them
Right.
terribly. So I just think just a last little great piece of advice there for sure.
And to remind people, John, because I think we have to do this. We're teachers. We have to remind people. We're talking about the love of creating a safe environment where you can have slow, gradual improvement over a period of time, where people don't fear as much as they feel caring and connection, where people feel heard, seen, important, valued, relevant. All these things are so important. And that's Jenny, and that's her whole culture right now. And it's hard to beat. It really is.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Well, listen, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you got as much out of that as certainly Jerry and I did.
Woo!
Man, I'm just buzzing after this conversation. So thanks again to Jenny Levy from UNC Lacrosse. Thank you to all of you for sharing and leaving reviews and everything you do for this podcast. It's a great time of year to reach out to Jerry and I for any bulk orders of books, whether it's Jerry's books, my books, or of course the two books that we've done together. We've been processing a bunch of those. So if you're just starting a winter season after the holidays, grab those books now because usually the book printing takes a little longer this time of year. So just you can email me, John at changingthegameproject.com. And if it's Jerry, I'll put you in touch with him, or if it's our books, I'll get those for you. Thanks to Sprocket Sports. Thanks to our Patreon podcast champions. And thank you to all of you. Your influence is never neutral. And certainly Jenny Levy realizes that, and her influence on us today was absolutely massive. So go take what you learn, go out there and make a difference this week. We'll see you again next week, everybody.